Hey everyone, and welcome to Animal Notebook. Thanks for tuning in to today's explainer, Chickadee Chatter, Decoding the Language of Tiny Birds. We're going to be diving into the surprisingly complex and honestly highly intelligent life of a bird you probably see in your backyard all the time, the chickadee. We're going to decode their secret language, figure out how their brains actually physically change with the seasons, and look at exactly how they manage to survive the bitter winter cold.
Now, seeing them darting around against a blue sky, it's easy to just think of them as these cute, familiar little fluff balls. But really, they're kind of like the Trojan horse of the avian world. They look totally unassuming, but beneath that adorable exterior is a world of hard science, hidden genius, and some seriously intense survival skills. They are way, way more than just a pretty face at the bird feeder.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, meet the backyard bandit. 2. Decoding chickadee chatter. 3. Big brains, giant memory. 4. Surviving the winter freeze. 5. Family life and nesting. And we'll wrap things up with 6. Our chickadee FAQs.
Okay, let's dive right into this with Section 1, Meet the Backyard Bandit from the genus Poecile.
You can spot their classic identifying markers right away. Just look at that stark black cap and bib, which contrasts so sharply with those bright white cheeks and that soft gray back. But what's really distinctive here is that uniquely stout conical bill. It is perfectly adapted for cracking open seeds. And notice their overall shape too. They have a relatively large head compared to their tiny little bodies, which gives them this iconic big-headed silhouette. It makes them super easy to spot flitting through the branches.
But the absolutely crucial point here is grasping just how tiny these resilient birds actually are. I mean, their average weight is a mere 9 to 14 grams. To put that into perspective, if you reach into your pocket right now and pull out just a handful of coins, you are holding the exact weight of a fully grown chickadee. It is literally astonishing when you consider what this tiny, lightweight frame has to endure out in the wild.
Which brings us to Section 2, Decoding chickadee chatter. Let's look at their incredibly complex language.
So, I want you to ask yourself, what is actually happening when you hear that famous, cheerful chickadee-dee-dee call at your own backyard feeder? I mean, it sounds like a happy little greeting, right? Well, science tells us it's actually something entirely different, and honestly, much more serious.
Turns out, this famous call is actually a highly advanced predator alarm system. We can literally translate those D notes for you right now. This brilliant auditory system scales precisely with the level of danger. So if a chickadee spots a low-threat predator, you might only hear 1 or 2 Ds. But if they spot a high-threat, highly agile predator, like a small owl or a hawk, they are going to rapidly add more Ds to the end of their call. It's essentially a dynamic, real-time broadcast to the entire forest about exactly how dangerous a situation is. How cool is that?
Moving right along to Section 3, Big Brains, Giant Memory.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the biology of their memory. Chickadees are what we call food catchers. During the fall, they hide thousands of individual seeds and insects all across their territory. And to remember where they hid all this food, well, their hippocampus, that's the specific region of the brain tied to spatial memory, actually physically grows larger in the autumn. It's wild. Some research even suggests new neurons form every single year just to help them manage this massive, ever-expanding mental map. Their brain literally swells with geographical data just so they don't go hungry.
All right, Section 4, Surviving the Winter Freeze. Let's talk about enduring the cold. So how does a bird that weighs as much as a few coins survive sub-freezing temperatures? The answer is a literal superpower called regulated hypothermia. This is a controlled biological state where the chickadee intentionally lowers its own body temperature by several degrees at night. Basically, by running their internal furnace at a lower temperature, they conserve vital energy. And they combine this incredible internal adaptation with physical behaviors too, like aggressively fluffing up their feathers to trap insulating air and joining mixed species foraging flocks with nuthatches and titmice during the day. That way, they maximize their chances of finding food and spotting those predators we talked about earlier. Next up, Section 5, Family Life and Nesting, Building the Next Generation.
When it comes to nesting behavior, chickadees are highly resourceful cavity nesters. Instead of just building a cup nest out in the open branches where it's exposed, they often excavate their own holes in soft, rotten wood. Or they'll simply take over abandoned woodpecker holes and man-made nest boxes. Once they clam a cavity, the female meticulously lines the inside with a soft, cozy layer of moss, animal fur, and plant material, just to make sure those eggs are kept warm and safe.
And their timeline, it is incredibly fast-paced.
A typical clutch size is about 6 to 8 tiny speckled eggs. The female incubates them for just 12 to 13 days. Once they hatch, both parents work furiously to feed the young. Then, roughly 16 days later, the chicks fledge, meaning they are ready to leave the nest. In under a month, they go from an egg to a flying, chattering little bandit exploring the forest.
Finally, Section 6, Chickadee FAQs. Let's do some rapid-fire facts.
Let's start with our first FAQ, which is something a lot of people wonder when winter rolls around. Do chickadees migrate away from the harsh cold?
The answer is no. They're mostly non-migratory. They are incredibly tough year-round residents. Thanks to that regulated hypothermia and their giant memory for hidden seeds we discussed, they simply don't need to flee south. While a few populations might shift short distances or move to lower elevations during exceptionally brutal winters, the chickadees at your feeder in July are very likely the exact same birds visiting you in December.
Moving right to our second FAQ. When you're looking out at your feeder, can you visually identify which chickadees are male and which are female?
The short answer is no, you really can't. Males and females look nearly identical. It is extremely difficult, if not totally impossible, to tell them apart by sight alone. Their classic black caps, those little bibs, and the graybacks are completely consistent across both sexes. It kind of keeps their individual identities a bit of a mystery to us human observers.
Here is our third FAQ, and honestly, I think it's one of the most delightful facts from our source material today. What exactly do you call a group of these birds? You know, like a murder of crows or a gaggle of geese?
And this brilliantly illustrates their personality. A group of chickadees is properly known as a banditry or a dissimulation, given their little black masks and their habit of swiftly swooping in to steal a single seed from a feeder before darting away. I honestly couldn't think of a more fitting name than a banditry.
Which brings us to our final FAQ, and this one directly connects to your own everyday backyard experience. Will they actually eat out of your hand?
Yes, they absolutely will. They're well known for their incredibly bold and active curiosity. With enough patience, a really still hand, and a little bit of seed, these wild birds will happily land right on your fingers. It's a pretty magical connection. But, it leaves us with a provocative thought. If a bird this tiny, weighing less than a handful of coins, possesses a brain that physically grows to map thousands of locations and speaks a language complex enough to scale predator threats in real time, what other incredibly complex, hidden languages are being spoken right outside your window every single day? Keep your eyes and your ears open. Thanks so much for joining this explainer on the Animal Notebook channel, and keep exploring.